Most people planning for retirement are obsessing over the wrong number. They're staring at their savings account, whether that's 50,000 or 500,000, and asking, is this enough? Here's what the Federal Reserve actually says. The average American at 60 has $365,000 saved for retirement. Maybe you're above that. Maybe you're below it. But if you own your home, that question is still incomplete. And making decisions based on incomplete information in retirement, that can be a very expensive mistake. Because here's what the financial industry almost never factors in. The single biggest asset most 60-year-olds have isn't sitting in their brokerage account. It's the four walls around them right now. And today, I'm going to show you the real number, straight from the Federal Reserve. And then I'm going to show you the part of that calculation that almost nobody is talking about. The part that could change everything about your retirement plan. I'm Chris Kemp, Utah real estate broker for over 25 years, hundreds of homes sold. And what I've watched close for almost 3 decades of this, the people who retire with confidence are not always the ones with the most money saved. They're the ones who ran the full math, not the hopeful math, but the real math. And I built a tool specifically for this, a retirement state cost calculator. So you can run your real number before you make any decisions. That's what we're doing today. And this is not a small decision. This can have a major impact on your retirement. Before I show you the real number, I want you to know where you actually stand compared to everyone else. Because one of the most paralyzing things in retirement planning is thinking you're the only one who hasn't figured this out. Well, let me tell you something, you're not. There's a lot of people who are still trying to figure this out. So here's what Americans your age have actually saved. And once I show you this, I think you'll breathe a little easier. And then I'll show you why the number still isn't the whole story. Let's start with the number. According to the Federal Reserve most recent survey of consumer finances, the median retirement savings for Americans between 55 and 64 is approximately $365,000. Now, let me put that in perspective, because there are really 3 buckets of people watching this right now. Bucket number 1, about 80% of Americans arrive at age 60 with under $200,000 saved. I know that sounds really alarming, but that number alone isn't the full picture. And I'm going to show you exactly why. Bucket number 2, somewhere between $200,000 and $1 million. That's where a lot of hardworking people land. But you still need a plan for actually how that money works state by state. Bucket number 3, only about 3.2% of Americans hit retirement with $1 million or more saved. So if you've been told you need $1 million to retire, I want you to know you're not alone if you don't have it. Most people don't. And here's what I want you to hear clearly. The savings number is only half the equation. Now, before I run the math on what $365,000 actually produces in retirement income, I want to tell you about 2 clients I worked with, because these 2 people tell you everything you need to know about why the savings number alone is the wrong thing to focus on. A few years ago, I sat across from a couple, I'll call them David and Linda. In the Salt Lake City area, David was 63, Linda was 61, and they had worked hard their entire lives. Their retirement savings, about $200,000, below the national median. And when they first called me, they were genuinely scared. They'd been told their whole lives they needed $1 million to retire. They felt like they'd failed. But here's what David and Linda also had. A home they owned for 22 years, paid off, worth $880,000. So we sat down together and we ran the full math on their situation. They sold their home, took the equity, moved to a state with no income tax on retirement income, a cost living about 30% lower than Utah, and bought a small home, paid cash, and still had over $300,000 left in the bank. David called me sometime later and he said, Chris, for the first time in my life, I feel like we're actually going to be okay. $200,000 in savings, retired beautifully because they ran the right numbers and did some planning. Now, I also want to tell you about someone who had the right number, a client, I'll call him Robert. He had $820,000 saved. By most standards, he was completely set. Robert moved states based on one headline he'd read about: no income tax. He didn't run the property tax numbers. He didn't look at healthcare costs. He didn't factor in what his actual living costs were going to be, or all the other costs that affect retirement. 18 months later, he called me. His monthly burn rate was $2,400, more than he projected. He wasn't in crisis, but he was stressed out. And stress in retirement is its own kind of cost. The difference between David and Linda and Robert wasn't the savings account, it was the math they ran before they made the move. That's what we're doing right now. You've probably heard the 4% rule. The idea that you can withdraw 4% of your savings annually and not run out of money. At $365,000, that's about $14,600 a year, or roughly $1,200 a month from your savings. Now, does that sound like enough to retire on? By itself, for most people, no, it's not. Social Security can add another $2,000 to $3,000 a month if it's still around. But here's what most retirement calculators and most financial advisors forget to include. Because if you own your home, you may be sitting on an asset worth more than everything in your savings account combined. And what you do with that asset, the decision, is the most financially impactful move most 60-year-olds will ever make. Here's a statistic that should change the way you think about this entire conversation. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, nearly 80% of homeowners age 60 and older own their own home outright or with significant equity. The average home equity for someone in that age group right now, roughly $300,000 to $350,000. In some markets, a lot more. Let me put two numbers on the screen. $365,000, that's your savings. $300,000, that's your home equity. If the median 60-year-old has both of those, we're not talking about a $365,000 retirement. We're talking about a $665,000 retirement. That changes the conversation entirely. Now, that home equity is not liquid. You can't spend it at the grocery store, but it is a real asset. And how you deploy it, whether you downsize and pocket the difference, whether you stay put and draw on savings, whether you move states and dramatically cut your cost of living, that decision will shape the next 25 years of your life. This is not a small decision, and I want you to make it with your eyes wide open. Okay, this is the part I built specifically for this conversation, because everything I just showed you is theory. What I'm about to show you is what it actually looks like in real numbers for someone in your exact situation. Pull up a pen or open your notes app, because what comes out of this calculator is the number you should be using to make your retirement decision. Not the headline, not the one number your financial advisor mentioned, the full picture. So let's run it. I built what I call a retirement state cost calculator. It lets us compare the total cost of retirement across different states. Not just income taxes, but property taxes, healthcare costs, utilities, and everyday cost of living. Because, as I always say, tax-friendly does not automatically mean low cost. Let me show you a couple scenarios using real numbers. So let's say you're the median American. You've got $365,000 saved, and you own a home with about $300,000 in equity. Your total retirement nest egg is $665,000. Let's say you live in California with a $380,000 house paid off. Now, I know, no chance is what you're saying, but some parts of California, it's still actually affordable. So let's just go with that. Okay, $24,000 per year in Social Security, $26,599 in 401k withdrawals. Your annual spending is about $48,000 per year. Now let's say you move one state over into Nevada. How much can you save per year? A little over $7,000 per year. How about Utah? Only about $4,000 per year difference. So Utah, I'm going to be transparent with you. I'm a Utah broker. I also live in Utah. So take this with context. But the numbers are the numbers. Utah has a flat 4.55% sales income tax, but very reasonable property taxes. Cost of living is below national average outside of Salt Lake City proper. And the outdoor lifestyle, healthcare infrastructure for active adults is generally pretty excellent. But it's not the least expensive state to retire to. And the more you make, the worse it gets. Let's say you have saved really well and have a pension of $4,000 a month, Social Security at $24,000 a year, and you have $1 million in a 401k earning 6% per year. So you pull out $40,000 per year from that. Your spending goes up to $60,000 per year, and you move from Utah to Nevada. You save $5,800 per year because no state income tax. Great, but let's say you want to be in sunny Florida on the beach sipping drinks. No state income tax. This is great, right? Whoa, Why does it cost me more? Home insurance in Florida due to hurricanes is the killer right now. And this doesn't even factor in the crazy HOA fees that they have there. The HOA fees have doubled or even tripled or more in some cases. Now, here's the part of this conversation that most financial advisors won't bring up because it requires them to talk about your home. And that's not their lane, but it's absolutely mine. I want to tell you about a client. I'll keep the details vague to protect their privacy, but the situation is one I've seen many times. A couple, both 62, combined savings of about $280,000 on paper. That sounds really uncomfortable. Retirement felt distant or at least fragile. They were living in a 5-bedroom, 2,800 square foot home they'd owned for 30 years. Kids were long gone. They were rattling around in a house not built for the life that they actually lived. He was done with the yard work every weekend. He was just tired of it. We sold that house before the IRMA rules kicked in for them. If you don't know what those are, watch this video I have right here that explains it, and you need to know about it. Okay. And after the commissions and the closing costs, they walked away with just over $490,000 in equity. They moved into a 1,600 square foot home in a low cost of living area and rented. No mortgage payment, but a rent payment of $1,800 per month. Suddenly their $280,000 in saving wasn't their entire retirement plan anymore. They added the $490,000 to the $280,000 for $770,000. Now they don't do any repairs, yard work, nothing, just rent and utilities. They have been getting about 8% return on their money for about $62,000 per year or $5,100 per month. Combined with $30,000 per year for Social Security or $2,500 per month, they spend about $2,100 per month on rent and utilities, and the rest is just what they need for food, living expenses, and having fun. So they are spending less than they bring in every month, and their nest egg is growing. Now, they also have an emergency fund just in case of the sequence of returns risk and the market goes down. They thought they were doomed, but now they're happier than ever. They travel and they visit their grandkids and they actually enjoy their retirement instead of stressing about it. They told me it felt like someone gave them their life back. That's the power of what I call right-sizing. And it's not about downgrading your life. It's about right-sizing your life so that your money works for you instead of you working for your money. The mistake I see people make, they wait. They stay in the big house too long because it's familiar, because it's comfortable, because change is hard. And I get it. I'm still in a big house and I haven't made the change yet, but that's because of some other personal reasons. We still have a 12-year-old son at home. And then years later, they call me and they say, Chris, I wish I would have done this sooner. I've been doing this for 25 years. I've seen this pattern far too many times, and I don't want that to be you. So what should you actually do with all of this? I'm not going to leave you with just the problem. Here's exactly what I'd walk you through if you were sitting across the table from me right now. And step number 1, calculate your real total number. Not just your savings account, add your home equity, add your pension, your Social Security income, you're projected to receive. Your actual retirement picture is almost always bigger than what's in your brokerage account. Most people don't add it all up because nobody hands them a form that does it. Do it anyway. Step 2, run the state math before you make any decisions. Whether you're planning to stay where you are or thinking about moving, run the full cost comparison, not just the property taxes, not just the income taxes, everything, insurance, healthcare, utilities, cost of living. I have a retirement state cost calculator linked below. It's free. It takes just a few minutes, and I promise it will change how you see this decision, because you can make your own decision with your eyes wide open and not get blindsided like so many people do. Step number 3, decide about your home before you touch your savings. This is the sequence most people get backwards. They start pulling for their 401k before they've made a decision about the house. If right-sizing is something you even considering, even remotely, figure that out first, because the equity you free up and the monthly costs you eliminate fundamentally change how much you need to withdraw. And that changes how long your savings last. Do the full math in the right order. So here's the bottom line. The average American has about $365,000 saved at age 60. If you're in that range or even below it, I don't want you to panic. I want you to look at the full picture, because most 60-year-olds also own a home. And that home equity, when deployed strategically, can be the difference between a retirement that feels like survival and one that feels like freedom. The people who get this right are not the people with the most money. They're the people who ran the real numbers, made the home decision intentionally, and didn't make assumptions about what retirement was going to cost before they actually checked. Now, I want to hear from you. I'm curious, genuinely. Are you in the savings feels scary camp, the I've got equity, but I'm not sure what to do with it camp, or somewhere in between? Let me know in the comments below, or maybe there is something else that has really got you worried. A lot of people are there right now. Everything's really expensive, and I'll tell you this, and I read all of the comments, every single one. And if you've got a specific question about your situation, drop it down there. You might just see it become a future video. If you're actually running those numbers for yourself and want a second set of eyes on it, I'm happy to spend 15 minutes with you. No charge, no obligation. The link is in the description below. You can simply book a call with me, and I'd be happy to walk through your situation with you just to see where you're at. I'll share everything I've gathered over 25 plus years of helping people make this exact decision. No pressure, just real information. If you found any of this information helpful, please do me a favor. Hit the like and subscribe button. Share it with someone you know who's trying to figure this retirement math out. This stuff really matters. And if you're wondering if $5,000 per month is enough to retire on in 2026, watch this video I have right here next. And until the next time, please stay safe, my friends.